Hi everyone, welcome once again to A.O.S Abroad. Thank you very, very much for joining today's episode. And I really do appreciate everyone for coming on board. I really appreciate everyone for taking time out to be part of this wonderful session. And today we are not going to actually, we're going to leave to expectation, especially on the topic we have for today. The topic is LMIA exempt Canadian work permits countries or nationalities. Um, I got a question, and someone was asking that are there any jobs that are LMIA exempt? Are there any opportunities to get work permits without necessarily actually going through the LMIA route? And of course, there's one thing we always say very well that for every rule, there's always an exception, right? So the exception also works on this. If you want to come to Canada, you want to work, you are looking for a sponsorship, or perhaps you are looking for a contract, you want to work for a Canadian employer, and you want to be here physically. If you are not here physically, if you are working online, there's no need for LMI. For instance, at A.O.S Abroad, we actually work with people from outside the country. We have some team members that we are working with currently that are outside the country working virtually. So just like someone also, another person asked that can I get jobs online? You understand? Can I get jobs online in Canada and actually be working virtually, working as a remote worker? And I told the person, of course, it's very much possible. If you are qualified, if you have the skills needed, you have the experience needed, you have the knowledge needed, and the expertise, of course, you can actually get the opportunity to get a job in Canada, be earning Canadian dollars, basically, be earning Canadian dollars. And with that Canadian dollars, of course, if you are in a country like Nigeria, you are basically balling. You are balling. So yes, it's possible to get a remote job, you understand, in Canada, be earning the Canadian dollars right from your home country. And with that, you don't need the LMIA, you don't need the labor market impact assessment report that you would get in order to show that there are no Canadians or permanent residents available to do that job in Canada. So for those who are working online, for those who are doing remote jobs, oh, you are in Nigeria, you got a gig, you got a job in Canada, and you are earning Canadian dollars in Nigeria without leaving the country of birth, which is Nigeria, then of course you don't need the LMIA. But today in this conversation, we are talking about those people that would, of course, leave their country of residence. They will leave their home country in some instances and come to Canada. Do you understand? They would come to Canada, they will migrate, or you understand, travel to Canada. And these are the set of people that we are talking about in this conversation today. That if you are part of those who have to leave or who want to leave your home country to come into Canada to work, then the rule of thumb is that you need an LMIA approved job offer. You need an LMIA positive report. You understand? You need to show that there are no Canadians, there are no permanent residents to do that job. You understand that you actually got through the contract or the employment or the sponsorship. But should in case you are not part of those who need LMIA, or like the question goes those, like the question the person asks, that is it everybody that needs LMIA? Do you understand? And of course, it's not everyone that needs LMIA. There are some certain people that are not going to necessarily require that LMIA report. They are not going to, because their jobs or their nature of the work permit is what is actually exempt from requiring a job, an LMIA report. So in this conversation today, we want to make use of the article that I actually got on cicnews.com website, the Canadian Immigration and Citizenship website, news website rather. And in that, it was talking about who needs a job offer, who needs an LMIA approved job offer. who needs the LMIA. Lorienta, thank you very much for liking our live on TikTok. Really appreciate that. So let's look at it. Let's go in depth to analyze and to discuss with ourselves which kind of person require, or which kind of immigrant require a an LMIA approved job, and on the contrary, who are those that don't require an LMIA what approved job? So, without wasting much of our time, for those on YouTube, you see that I shared the link of the article, so you can go on the article to actually read it yourself. But I'll be discussing the article and also bringing my own ideas to the article right here today. So, this article is written by Caroline Minks, and it's published today, June 17, 2025, on cicnews.com website. And it is an article whereby they are talking about those that citizens of countries that perhaps they have an agreement with Canada. You understand? They can get Canadian work permit without needing the LMIA. You understand? In other words, they are LMIA exempt Canadian work permits. You understand? Countries. So let's look at it. They said citizens of certain countries have an advantage when they are seeking what Canadian work permit. It's not all countries that have the opportunity to come into Canada with their boat chests. You understand? And to come and work without necessarily needing the LMIA to show that there are no Canadians or permanent residents able to do that job. So basically, if you are a citizen of a country that has a free trade agreement, FTA, with Canada, you understand? If your country has a free trade agreement with Canada, you may qualify for a labor market impact assessment exempt work permit under one or what or more of these agreements. Do you understand? Now, the question now goes those that what are these agreements? Is it every country that can have agreements with Canada? Or which are these countries that have agreements with Canada? Let's now look at it. Let's go in depth to analyze that the countries that have agreements with Canada. Are you in that country? If you are in that country, how can you actually benefit from it? If you are not, what are the other options that you have to actually get an LMIA exempt work permit? Now, they said foreign nationals who don't qualify under what? Under an FTA must often pursue the LMIA based work permits, which are more difficult, more costly, and even time consuming to obtain. Do you understand? So, if you are in a country that basically requires you to get an LMIA in Canada before you are given a job, it just means that you are going to have to spend more, or your employer will have to spend more. It's going to be much more time consuming because it doesn't get that priority that it gets under the IRCC or with the IRCC, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada office. And also, it will be much more difficult to get it because it's not just a walk in the park. You would have to persevere and go through some hurdles before you are able to get that LMIA based work permit. That does not mean it's not possible. It's very possible. A lot of people are getting it. You understand, with or without immigration partners like lawyers, like consultants. A lot of people are getting it, but that does not mean that because everybody many people are getting it, everybody can now get it. No, it doesn't mean that. So let's move on. They said this article will cover which nationalities can qualify for FTA. What do we call FTA again? We call it the Free Trade Agreement with Canada. So they said they would let us know the nationalities that qualify for FTA work permits. Two, they are going to inform us the types of FTA, the Free Trade Agreement work permits available and their requirements. Is very important. So you are going to learn what are those FTA work permits that are available, and what are the requirements you need to actually have in order to get that particular work permit. Also, you will learn how to apply for an FTA based work permit. How can you apply for the free trade agreement work permit? Now, firstly, let's talk about the nationalities that qualify. What are the eligible nationalities? Who are the citizens of these certain countries that qualify for LMIA exempt work permit? What do we call LMIA exempt work permit again? We said this is a kind of work permit that you get and you don't need to actually apply, or your employer don't need to apply for the labor market impact assessment report. In other words, they don't need to show that that job is not taken by a Canadian or cannot be done by a permanent resident. So they are much more at the liberty to employ anyone, you understand, in these select countries. So what are these countries? Eligible nationalities. They said below is a list of countries and their associated FTAs. Number one country is Australia. If you are an Australian, you are a citizen of Australia, then you can actually get qualified for labor LMI exempt work permit. Do you understand? And the applicable FTA, the free trade agreement, is CPTPP. We're going to still talk about the initials, or do you understand the abbreviations of this? Austria, if you are from, that's the second country. If you are from Austria, you're a citizen of Austria. CETA is another agreement that Austria has with Canada to allow Austrians to actually come and work in Canada without LMIA. If you are from Belgium, CETA is also the same FTA. Brunei, CPTPP, just like Australia, is also available for you to get LMIA exempt work permit. Do you understand? We also have Bulgaria, the fifth country. CETA is also applicable for this country, and you'll be able to get the LMIA exempt work permit through this country. Now, number six is Chile. Chile has also the CPTPP and even the CCFTA, you understand, agreement with Canada to allow its citizens to come to work in Canada without needing an LMIA. Colombia, if you are from Colombia, you're a citizen of Colombia, the CCOFTA is also an agreement with Canada that allows you to work easily in Canada. The Croatia, it has the CETA agreement. Cyprus, CETA agreement. Czechia, Czechia has the CETA agreement. Denmark also has a CETA agreement with Canada. Estonia has the CETA agreement. Finland has the CETA agreement with Canada. France has the CETA agreement. So all these countries, if you are a citizen of all these countries, it just means you can come into Canada and actually work with an LMIA exempt work permit. Do you understand? Finland, as I said, is under CETA. France is under CETA. Germany is under CETA. Greece is under CETA. Hungary is under CETA. Even Ireland is under CETA. Italy is under CETA. Even you see, if you are an Italian, for instance, you can come into Canada and work an LMIA exempt job. Do you understand? If you're also a Japanese, you are from Japan, the CPTPP is another agreement that allows you to work in Canada easily. If you are from Latvia, the CETA is applicable. Lithuania, the CETA is applicable. Luxembourg, the CETA is applicable for that. Malaysia, the CPTPP is available. So for anybody that is a Malaysian nationality or Malaysian citizen, you can also come into Canada to work easily. If you are from Malta, the CETA applies. From Mexico, we also have the CUSMA and the CPTPP. The CUSMA and the CPTPP applies to Mexico. If you are from Netherlands, the CETA applies to you. From New Zealand, the CPTPP. From Peru, the CPTPP applies to you. From Poland, the CETA applies to you. From Portugal, the CETA applies to you. From Romania, the CETA applies to you. From Singapore as well, the CPTPP applies to you. If you are from Slovakia, the CETA applies to you. From Slovenia, the CETA also applies to you. If you are from Spain, the SETA applies to you. From Sweden, SETA also applies to you. From United States, the CUSMA, the CUSMA applies to you. If you are from Vietnam, the CPTPP applies to you. So if you look at that, there are different free trade agreements that different countries are qualified for. So different requirements will apply depending on the work permit that you want to get in question. If you are uncertain about the certain requirements or eligibility criteria, then you have to consult an experienced immigration representative, be it a consultant or a lawyer that will look into you understand the case and tell you the one you are qualified for. But let's take an example. In all cases, whether it is through the CPTPP or the SETA or the CUSMA, you understand, you must be admissible to Canada to gain entry. Just like I've explained in my previous live session, where I said there are some people that are coming into Canada this summer. For instance, some people that would come under the CUSMA would be those that would be able to actually enter Canada if they are admissible. If you are not admissible, maybe you have committed a particular crime, you understand, whether it's criminality or serious criminality, as I've explained before, or you have some medical issues, you may not be allowed entry, you understand, into the country, right? Now, Canada United States Mexico Agreement, the CUSMA, is one of the free trade agreements that Canada has with United States and Mexico. Now, if you look at that, the CUSMA, the successor of NAFTA, NAFTA was the previous free trade agreement with Canada. Now, this CUSMA is the successor of NAFTA, and it is for citizens of the US, United States, and citizens of Mexico who wish to work temporarily in Canada. Do you understand? Now, you may wonder, like my own country, for instance, Nigeria, we don't have any free trade agreements, you understand, with Canada. Sadly, our country doesn't have it. So if you are from Nigeria like me, then zero out the possibility of LMIA exempt work permit through the what? Through the free trade agreement. However, if you are maybe for instance in Nigeria and you have also gotten your United States citizenship, in other words, you are also an American citizen, there are basically four eligible types of business persons that can come into Canada to work temporarily through this citizenship. One, the professionals. You understand? The professionals. You must possess a confirmed job offer in one of the 63 eligible CUSMA occupations. We're not going to have time to go through all of them, but these job offers must be come along with the necessary education that you possess, the professional credentials that you have, and the required certifications to perform in that position. Oh boy, sorry about that. And the work permit validity, it lasts up to 3 years. Do you understand? Up to 3 years. So let's take for example, if you are coming to Canada this June of 2025 through the CUSMA, you can have opportunity to work from 2025 to 2026, 2026 to 2027, 2027 to 2028. You understand? For 3 years. Now that's the first one for those that are professionals. Number two, if you are an intra-company transferee, let's say you are an executive, you are a senior manager, or you are someone with specialized knowledge. You understand? You're a specialized knowledge worker of a multinational company. You understand? Wanting to do business with the same or related company in Canada, then you may be what? You may also be eligible. That's the second category. Now, you must have also been employed continuously by that company from your country for at least 1 year in the past 3 years prior to what? Prior to applying. And the work permit validity for that is up to 5 years for especially an executive manager, and it is up to 3 years for a specialized knowledge worker, someone that has specialized skills. Now that's the second. If you look at the first, we talked about the professionals. If you're a professional or you are an intra-company transferee. Number three, If you are an investor and you are a trader, you qualify as a supervisor or an executive or a specialist with essential project skills. You understand? And you are also actively engaged in substantial trade between the US, United States, within Mexico, and also Canada. Do you understand? Or let's say, for instance, you may instead seek to establish or develop or even administer a significant investment, including providing technical and advisory services for the operations of that investment. You understand? And this, your work permit validity is just for up to what? Up to 1 year. Do you understand? So whether you are a professional, you are an intra-company transferee, you are an investor, or you are a trader, you stand a chance to come into Canada without requiring an LMIA report for within 1 year to 5 years, depending on the what? Depending on the category under the CUSMA under the Canada, United States, and Mexico Free Trade Agreement. Now let's now go in depth to explain the SETA. SETA is the full meaning of SETA is the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, SETA. Now, this agreement allows foreign nationals from one of the 27 member countries of the European Union to be eligible to work for SETA work permit. There's a permit we call the SETA work permit, provided they fall into one of the four categories listed below. It's similar to the CUSMA. If you're a professional under this category, you can be either a contractual service supplier or an independent self-employed professional. And of course, you need a university degree or equivalent qualification for this. You need occupation specific professional certifications. For instance, if you are an accountant, you may need ACCA or ICANN. Do you understand? And you need relevant work experience in that niche. You can't say you are an accountant and the experience you are using is for a barber or, you understand, a chauffeur. It doesn't work. You have to have experience in that niche. You understand? And basically, you have three for service suppliers. Do you understand? Three in terms of 3 work years experience if you are a service supplier, or you have 6 work experience if you are an independent professional. In other words, if you are a self employed, right? Now, they said service suppliers must have been employed. If you are a service supplier, you must have been employed by the EU company, the European Union company, with a parent or subsidiary or branch or affiliate company in Canada, you understand, which will make you eligible. So workers must also have worked for the European Union employer or a related European Union employer in a member state for at least 1 year. So for instance, if you want to work for maybe Deloitte, for example, just as a case study, you want to work for Deloitte in Canada, and you have been working for Deloitte in maybe like Slovenia. You understand? In order to come to Canada, you must have worked for Deloitte for at least up to, you understand, 12 calendar months, or in some situations, even up to 24 months, like in the case of the work validity, in like in the case of the investor, the independent contractor. Now, the work permit validity for this professional is 24 months, 2 years, and you can only work for up to what? You can only work for up to 12 months in that 2 year period. Now, if you are an intra-company transferee, whether you are a supervisor, you are an executive, or those with specialized knowledge, and even graduate trainees. Yes, this setup also gives opportunities to graduate trainees that are employed by an European Union company with either a parent, a subsidiary, a branch, or an affiliate company in Canada being eligible. And workers that come through the intra-company transferee program, they must be workers that have worked for the EU company or the related EU company, EU member in a member state for at least 1 year. Now you can be seeing some pattern in everything we are saying. The pattern is if you want to work in Canada for like a year or for two, you must you must have been able to work and show proof that you have worked for a company in your home country for at least a year or two. Do you understand? Now, the work permit validity for intra-company transferee is up to 3 years. 3 years for executives or specialists, and up to what? Up to 1 year for graduate trainees. Now, the third category is for investors. If you're an executive, you're a supervisor, or you are an individual with specialized skills again, and you have made or will be making a substantial investment in a new or existing Canadian business. You understand? The duties must consist only of developing and directing the business. Do you understand? So you must have years of experience showing that yes, you have developed business before and you have also what directed the business operations. Now, for the work permit validity, it's just for 24 months and you can only work for 12 months within that 24 months. If you're also a technologist, you must either be in an engineering or scientific technology field. You must have a 3 year post-secondary education, post-secondary degree, or an equivalent certification or qualification. And you must have 3 years of experience in what? In the relevant sector. To qualify for this, the technologist program, you need to have been employed by an European Union company for a minimum of 1 year, and it must have a service contract in Canada. Now, it is necessary for you to have the appropriate licensing or certification that you require for the for the occupation. And of course, the work permit validity is within 24 months, but you can work for only what? Only 12 months. Now, I think the last kind of agreement we have is the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, the CPTPP. The CPTPP. Now, the citizens and in some cases even permanent residents. Now, this is where I'm actually going to, because sometimes some of us we were already born in, you understand, Nigeria or in Africa. But let's assume that maybe someone like Shadi, you have gone to a country that has this CPTPP agreement, and you have been able to become a permanent resident in that country. In this case, in some cases, even permanent residents that are not yet citizens of that country, you understand, in the Indo-Pacific region of of the continent, may be eligible for what? A work permit through one of the four CPTPP categories. So if you are a professional, just like in the other agreement, and you are a worker with 4 year post-secondary education or post-secondary degree, and you have 2 years of work experience, you may actually qualify for this. And the eligible occupations under the professional categories are always country-based. So depending on the country you are part of in the Indo-Pacific region, you can actually stand a chance. And the work permit validity for this is just 1 year, just up to 1 year. Now, if you are also an intra-company transfer, you are a manager, executive specialist, or you are in the management trainee employed by a multinational company that is to work in Canada for the same what, or for the same or related company. For that scenario, you must have what? You must have at least 1 year of continuous employment or partnership with the CPTPP business within the last 3 years. And your work permit validity can be up to 3 years. Now, this one has a lot, it has a lot of years of validity, unlike the other professional work, unlike the other professional categories. If you're also an investor, let's assume you are from maybe like Belgium and you are a supervisor or an executive or a specialized skills employee planning to establish or develop a substantial investment of your own or through your expertise. You have a work permit validity of up to 1 year. And if you're also a technician, You can come to work in Canada if you're a citizen or permanent resident of certain CPTPP countries with a 2-year post-secondary or technical degree and 4 years of work experience in their contracted job sectors. You may be qualified under the technician categories. Now, the eligible technician occupations vary as well from country to country. Now look at it. Let's assume um, for the technicians, you also have 1 year of work permit validity. Now, there's another what they call it. There's another um, free trade agreement, which is that of the Canada Chile Free Trade Agreement (CCFTA). Do you understand? If you are from Chile, under the CCFTA, citizens of Chile may obtain an LMIA exempt. You understand? An LMIA exempt work permit to work temporarily in Canada if they fall under an eligible category. If they are also professionals in eligible medical or allied or scientific or teaching occupation, and they meet the eligible education requirements for the position. Now, you must also have all the licenses and certifications required for your pre-arranged position. Let's assume you are coming in as a professor. You cannot be a professor without having maybe like the master's or in some institutions the PhD, you understand, or becoming already a professor, you understand, or a reader in the university you were working for before you actually came in. So the work permit validity for this is up to 3 years. Now, when you are coming in as an intra-company transferee, Chilean employees of a multinational company that has a parent, a subsidiary, a branch, or affiliate company in Canada wanting to work for the same or related company in Canada requires you to be a manager, an executive, or a specialized knowledge worker. And the work permit validity for this is 5 years for a manager or executive, 3 years for a specialized knowledge employee. Now, lastly, if you are an investor and you are a trader, you understand, as a supervisor or executive or individuals with essential skills planning to either engage in substantial trade, goods or services between Canada and Chile, or to establish or develop or administer a substantial investment. The latter can include providing advice or key technical services. And this work permit validity is just for what? Just for 1 year. Now that's for Chile. Let's talk about that of Colombia. Under the Canada-Colombia Free Trade Agreement, the CCOFTA, the citizens of Colombia can actually, through the CCOFTA, get what we know as the LMIA exempt work permit to work in Canada for a length of time determined by their work permit type. Now, professionals that are in this situation are professionals not deemed ineligible. In other words, they don't fall under the NOC tier 0 or 1, and they are with 4 years of post-secondary degree in their field of study. And to qualify, they must also meet all the licensing and certification requirements for that particular position. And of course, their work permit validity is just for 1 year. But for intra-company transferee, they are managers, executives, specialized knowledge worker, or management trainees employed by a multinational company in Colombia who are being sent to work for the same or related company in Canada. They must have been employed continuously by that particular Colombian employee for at least 6 months in the last 3 years prior to applying. And their work permit validity is up to what? Up to 3 years. If they are also technicians, Colombian citizens in an eligible technician occupation with a 2-year post-secondary or technical degree may also qualify. And you must have all the necessary licensing and certification for your position and to work in the tier 2 or tier 3 occupation. And the work validity for that is just 1 year. If you're under the trades and investors, You are a supervisor, executive, individuals with essential skills seeking to carry on substantial trade like goods and services or invest in substantial amount of capital in Canada. The latter can include providing advice or technical services. And the work permit validity is just what? Up to 1 year. So note, basically, they said the Canadian federal government uses the National Occupation Classification (NOC) to categorize occupations. And within the NOC, there are 6 levels of training, education, experience, and responsibilities, the tiers system, with tier 0 being the highest skilled occupations and tier 5 being the least skilled. Now, how do you apply with everything we have said, with all the FTAs we have explained, with all the agreements we have seen? How do you apply? There are two main phases of submitting an application. The first is the employee's responsibility, and the second is the foreign national or the foreign worker responsibility. Now, employee steps, you have to first of all submit the job offer that you got using the employer portal. So the employer basically will submit that job. Number three, the employer that is going to employ you has to pay the employer compliance fee of 230 Canadian dollars necessary to hire a worker through the International Mobility Program, which is the program we're talking about today. Number three is providing you with an offer of employment letter. Once that has been approved, that has been sorted, then they can offer you the offer of what? Employment. Now, the employee steps. If, for instance, you are now the employee, you are the one coming to Canada. Number one, you have to ensure that you are eligible. Eligible requirements differ based on what? Both the applicable FTA and the designated work permit category under each FTA's framework. Number two, you have to read the instruction guide well, because the federal government has an instruction guide for each FTA, you understand, and they provide more detailed eligibility and applicable application information, consideration, and stipulations. Now, the step three is to gather the necessary documentation. When you are filling out an online application, especially for work permits, you will receive a unique document checklist outlining the document you must submit, and you will also want to submit proof of certain things like educational credentials, like licenses, like certifications, like specialized knowledge to possess for your what you possess for your role if applicable. Step four, you must also pay the work permit processing fee yourself, not the employer will pay this, you will pay it yourself. And the processing fee for work permit is 155 Canadian dollars, which is cheap. And you must include what the payment receipt with your application, as this is your proof of what of payment. And lastly, step five is for you to submit the application to the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada (IRCC). You may also be required to provide biometrics in some cases, depending on your country of citizenship and occupation type. And if so, you would have to pay the 85 Canadian dollars for biometric processing fees. Now, meeting the requirements does not, you have to understand, it doesn't guarantee that you will be issued a work permit. You must still be admissible. All the permits that are issued at the discretion of the immigration officer viewing the application must be seen, and permit processing times vary. It varies by country, and it also tends to be what to fluctuate, but in a general range of 3 weeks to 5 months, which is very fast. Within 3 weeks, if you are lucky, you can get your what LMIA-exempt work permit. If you are not fast, it can take up to what 5 months. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. Please, do we have any questions? If you have any questions, drop it on the comment section. If we don't, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit on the notification bell to get notified anytime we drop the content or we come on live. And don't forget, at least once a week, we always come on live to talk about trending topics. And you understand, read some articles and explain things to you. So you can always join us same place, same time, any other day that we come on live. So thank you very much, everyone. Really do appreciate you joining the live, and I don't take it for granted. Thank you very much, everyone, once again, and do have a lovely day ahead. Bye for now.